Today's episode confronts Lebanon's escalating crisis, a crisis tied directly to the genocide in Gaza. The fallout included the assassination of Hezbollah's leader, Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah. Israeli bombardment continues to this day. The Lebanese government has come under extreme pressure from the US to disarm Hezbollah. On August 5th and 7th, the Lebanese government voted to accept the US plan and enforce the disarmament. I want to go back to the cabinet meeting that was held on September 5th.
I'm not supposed to say much because we've agreed the deliberation, the report presented by the Commander-in-Chief of the Army are under the seal of secrecy. Unfortunately, 5 of our colleagues had withdrawn from the session before the Commander-in-Chief of the Army came into the room. The Army knows exactly what it wants to do and has a plan for that in 5 stages, but also they need to see a cessation of hostilities.
This plan has to address the lack of capability of the Lebanese army to defend the country. Is it fair to say, as Hezbollah officials claim, that the Lebanese government might be reneging or is reneging on its original agreement that Hezbollah endorsed when the President and the Prime Minister made their statements?
We didn't use the word disarmament, but when you extend the authority of the state by its own means to the whole territory, you're declaring arms outside the realm of the state being illegal. This is for us Lebanese to handle, in a way, irrespective of Israeli and American pressure. And we will continue to urge the international community to put pressure on Israel so that it complies with the agreement it has signed on November 27th of last year. Lebanon has complied with the agreement, they did not. There were people who were telling us, look, as long as the Israelis are still there and are not willing to stop their aggression, why do you want to disarm Hezbollah? And the answer was, extending the authority of the state is a Lebanese matter, irrespective of what Israel does or doesn't do. We admit that there is pressure, American pressure and Israeli pressure, but we're not doing this for the sake of the Americans or of the Israelis. We're doing it for the sake of the Lebanese.
Why is it prioritizing disarmament of Hezbollah when there hasn't been clear compliance by Israel to Resolution 1701 and the ceasefire agreement?
That's a good question.
Welcome to the next instalment of the Real Talk podcast, and thank you to our subscribers for your vigilance and commitment to staying informed about the critical issues shaping the world today. From Gaza to Syria, Iran to Lebanon, the Middle East is once again the stage for a global power struggle. Millions, perhaps billions, have awakened to the injustice, suffering, destruction, and massacres being inflicted daily, not only on the Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank, but also in Sudan and the Congo, and on Lebanon and its people. Our mission here is clear: to cut through the propaganda, challenge the narratives pushed by Western media and its backers, and bring you the truth. Today's episode confronts Lebanon's escalating crisis, a crisis tied directly to the genocide in Gaza. On October 8, 2023, Hezbollah unilaterally entered the conflict, opening a northern front against Israel without consultation or approval from the Lebanese government. Its declared aim was to support the Palestinians in the face of Israel's unrestrained military assault, following Hamas's October 7 attack. For those less familiar with Hezbollah's background, it was formed in 1982 as a resistance movement to Israel's invasion of Lebanon in 1980. For 2 decades, it stood as the only force capable of defying the Israeli army, ultimately driving its withdrawal in 2000. By 1992, after the end of the Lebanese civil war, Hezbollah had become an official political party, one that continues to shape Lebanon's political and military landscape, as well as its fate today. Lebanon remains deeply divided over Hezbollah's decision to drag the country into war. Morally, many argue there was justification in supporting the Palestinians against an occupier that for more than 75 years has sought to erase them and seize their land. Politically, however, Hezbollah bypassed its constitutional authority, acting without the Lebanese government's approval. Practically, it proved disastrous. The fallout included the assassination of Hezbollah's leader, Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, his successor, scores of senior commanders, and the deaths of thousands of Lebanese civilians and displacement of hundreds of thousands. Entire villages, homes and neighbourhoods from South Lebanon to the Bekaa Valley to Beirut's southern suburbs were reduced to rubble. Israeli bombardment continues to this day, with drones dominating the skies, sowing fear and trauma among citizens. Was it worth it? Many Lebanese say no, but that is not our debate today. Today we sit down with Lebanon's Deputy Prime Minister, His Excellency Tarek Mitri, to discuss the ramifications of the past 2 years and the precarious position facing Lebanon's government. In November 2024, the US and France brokered a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah. The terms required Hezbollah to retreat north of the Litani River, while the Lebanese Army would deploy in the south to dismantle infrastructure and confiscate unauthorized weapons. In return, Israel was to withdraw. Hezbollah complied in the most part. Its fighters pulled back and its infrastructure was dismantled. But Israel has not honoured the agreement. Instead, it remains entrenched in southern Lebanon and has expanded its occupation, seizing even more territory. Over recent months, the US envoy Tom Barak, as well as an entourage of other officials from the US and France, have visited Beirut several times, trying to push a new agreement that imposes greater terms on Hezbollah, including full disarmament of its militia, whilst no additional terms or pressure has been placed on Israel. The Lebanese government has come under extreme pressure from the US to disarm Hezbollah and all other non-state actors and place all weapons under the authority of the state through the Lebanese Army. On August 5th and 7th, the Lebanese government voted to accept the US plan and enforce the disarmament. Hezbollah firmly rejected the decision and urged the government to retract it, stating that it would spell suicide for Lebanon and leave the country unprotected against Israel, which is still occupying Lebanon, has failed to comply with any terms of the ceasefire agreement, and is an opponent that can't be trusted. Gaza, a case in point. Meanwhile, the Lebanese President Joseph Aoun and the cabinet called on the Lebanese Army to devise a plan that would meet the obligations set out in the agreement, including disarmament. And on September 5th, the Commander-in-Chief of the Lebanese Army, Rodolph Haykal, visited the presidential palace and presented his plan to the president and the government. The outcome of that meeting and the details of the Army's plan remain unclear. We pick up this interview following that meeting on September 5th and are grateful to His Excellency, Mr. Mitri, for this opportunity to take a closer look at the situation with us today. Welcome, Excellency.
Thank you, it's my pleasure.
Thank you for allowing me to provide everyone with a detailed introduction so that we could enable them to get context to the conversation we're having today. And what's most important is that you are the most relevant and capable person, suitable person from the government to be having this conversation, as you are leading efforts to enforce the state's monopoly and implement a UN Resolution 1701, which in fact you played a key role in during the original negotiations of that resolution, which came into effect after the Second Israel-Lebanon War in 2006. So, my first question, and I want to go back to the cabinet meeting that was held on September 5th. What can you tell us about that meeting and what was discussed in relation to disarmament?
Yes, in principle, I'm not supposed to say much because we've agreed that the deliberations that we had following the report presented by the Commander-in-Chief of the Army are under the seal of secrecy. The reason is not that we don't want to be transparent, nor do we want to hide anything, but the reason has to do with the fact that the report that was presented to us was too technical, which is what an army report should be, that it risks being misinterpreted in an atmosphere of political polarization, and where unfortunately the media isn't always faithful to the facts, nor does it put the words in the right place. So that's probably the reason why we've decided not to disclose the report of the army. So what am I going to say will be general, partly because also I'm not the kind of person who claims knowledge in things military. Maybe there were colleagues in the Council of Ministers who are more skilled than I in military affairs.
Interpreting it. How was it received, though, in the Council of Ministers?
Unfortunately, 5 of our colleagues had withdrawn from the session before the Commander-in-Chief of the Army came into the room.
And they were all the Shia representatives, Hezbollah and Amal?
Yes. But, they left the session with a smile. They did not leave us angrily. I think intuitively they knew that the session was not going to be marked by hostility towards them and towards what they're supposed to represent. I think they knew that.
So why would they leave then?
The main argument they used made sense to them. That is, on August 15th, when the government decided to ask the army to prepare a report, they had withdrawn from the session. Therefore, they did not take part in the decision-making process of that day. Now that we're implementing what we have decided, I thought that to be consistent with their previous attitude, they better withdraw. But as I said, their withdrawal was rather amicable. They were not aggressive. So therefore, either they knew or they felt that the division will not be deepened. Perhaps quite the contrary. There would be an attempt to heal some of the divisions prior to the session.
And there's, as you're saying, there is a bit of confusion out there as to the details of the plan and whether the plan was officially adopted by the government or just presented to the government, because some news reports and media over the last few days is giving us both options. So can you shed any light on that? Was it an agreement that was just presented and not adopted yet? And was that also...
No, that's a misinterpretation. In international parlance, when you ask someone to present a report, you either take note or receive or take due note or express your satisfaction. This is not a kind of report that you will discuss word by word and approve, because it's a report that is partly descriptive, it partly raises questions, and doesn't warrant approval in the strict sense of the word. But saying we welcome the report is going even... It's the most satisfactory word you can give. Above, it's more than taking due note. It's more than taking, receiving. Of course, it's more than taking note. We're welcoming, which is another way of saying the report is good, we liked it, and we want the army to proceed according to what it has promised to do. So the rest is insignificant. I think the whole stories that were canvassed around the world seem to suggest more of an unfamiliarity with those notions than anything else.
Right. And people wanting to stir up a bit of, drama around the story.
Exactly.
The other indications were that the army had to report back to the government
on a monthly basis. A progress report. Which is an indication that we're very serious about making sure that the army complies with what it has planned to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I guess it can be interpreted in many ways, because I guess what you're saying is it's a technical report, it's complicated, and there may be phases to it, whilst we still don't know exactly what's in it. And I guess reporting back to the government might not necessarily mean implementing disarmament or whatever it might be, but executing on the plan as they have delivered it. And there might be more work that needs to be undertaken and information presented back to the government to... Yeah. I'm just projecting here.
No, but you're largely right in what you're saying. Actually, the report doesn't have a calendar through and through. It refers only to the first 3 months, but then the rest, it leaves the time frame open to changes according to the realities on the ground and according to the capabilities of the army. Now, the army knows exactly what it wants to do and has a plan for that in 5 stages, but is not sure, and that was kind of candid on their behalf, was not sure that they can give an exact date on the time they need to implement this plan. They need to be empowered much further in every respect, not just politically and morally, but in terms of military means. They need empowerment to proceed swiftly with the plan. But also they need to see a cessation of hostilities. Short of a cessation of hostilities, there will always be limitations on what the army plans to do.
And this is a very critical point, and I'll get into it further, but so you're indicating that part of this plan has to address the lack of capability of the Lebanese army to defend the country, because as you stated, it doesn't have the equipment, weaponry to really enforce what America is expecting it to do and Israel is alluding to. And secondly, there has to be compliance on both parts, which is a very important factor and a major concern for the Lebanese, as well as on the Hezbollah and the Shia side. That's important that those 2 factors have been incorporated and addressed, and obviously they should be. Let me go then to just a question on the Hezbollah component, because Fadda, you have a...
If I may, what I said doesn't necessarily mean that the army will sit idle, waiting for more means at its disposal to move forward in the execution of its plan. The army will do everything it can and is determined to move forward in its plan. But they drew our attention to the fact that they would need more support to be able to do that. Now, they have some realistic tasks that will possibly be performed early on in the first three months. that is to complete the extension of their authority over the area south of the Litani River. Yes. They're very close to accomplishing fully their mission south of the Litani. There is also a reference to a policy of containment of armed people in Lebanon, yes. Armed groups, non-state actors, you call them what you want. It's not just Hezbollah, it's some Palestinian groups, it's other Lebanese political military organizations. All these people will have to be contained for a certain period of time. So all of this is to be taken very, very seriously. And that's probably the reason why we wanted a progress report, to make sure that the army stands by its commitment.
And it's important to note that we're not just talking about Hezbollah. There are Palestinian militia groups in the country.
True.
And there are other gangs, we can say, or I'm not sure what other persona or profile of other militia groups there are here, but are they connected to Daesh? Are they connected to what other groups is the army concerned about and having to contain, or included in that definition of non-state actors?
Well, look, I'm not aware of a Daesh group in Lebanon. There might be some Daesh individuals, and every now and then we hear about the arrest of terrorists that are in a way or another related to a Daesh or Daesh-like network. But I don't think Daesh is an organization, is active in Lebanon. And to a large extent, Daesh has been dismantled. That doesn't mean that all its fighters have vanished. They're still there.
On the Syrian-Lebanon border.
Yeah, God knows where exactly they are. But the Lebanese army is vigilant, and so is the police force, and every now and then they arrest few people who are allegedly part of the Daesh network. But I wasn't referring to Daesh. I was referring, as you said, to Palestinian organizations, but there are few Lebanese groups as well that are armed. Yes. And though they support Hezbollah, they're not part of Hezbollah.
Right. Yeah. But what about groups like the Progressive Socialists, the Druze? You know, you go into their area, there are people with light weapons. You can see that, and there's even, you know, with the Lebanese forces, they still have weapons, but we're not talking heavy weapons.
Yes. I mean, unfortunately, most Lebanese
carry weapons.
It's like many states in the United States, you know,
the right to
bear arms. The right to bear arms is
constitutionally
something
protected.
sacrosanct to them, although it's unconstitutional in Lebanon, unlike the U.S.
Yes.
But it's tolerated, partly because almost everybody, save you and I, have a Kalashnikov or a machine gun or whatever, or a pistol in their houses to defend themselves against thieves and thugs and what have you.
Yeah.
So, and all those parties and former militias that you've mentioned are armed. The members are still armed. But we would like to believe that all their heavy arms have been handed over. Lebanese forces did so in the 90s. Yes. So did the Socialist Party in the 90s, and even more recently when the leader of the party, Walid Jumblat, has handed over some of its heavy weapon, what remains of that heavy weapon, to the state. So would like to believe that there are not much heavy weapons out there.
Hidden tanks or missiles.
No, I doubt.
Under mountains.
I doubt.
Well, getting back to the question of disarmament and the question between the dilemma between Hezbollah and the government that was raised in an interview I did recently with one of the Hezbollah members of parliament. But just looking at the facts, in both the presidential oath delivered by President Joseph Aoun in January, which Hezbollah supported, and the ministerial declaration that secured Prime Minister Nawaf Salam's vote of confidence in the parliament in February, both supported by Hezbollah, the monopoly of arms was linked to discussing a national defence strategy. But this hasn't been discussed as was agreed. What changed, and were the priorities shifted under US pressure? And is it fair to say, as Hezbollah officials claim, that the Lebanese government might be reneging or is reneging on its original agreement that Hezbollah endorsed when the President and the Prime Minister made their statements?
Look, I always like to go back to the statement issued by the government upon its votes before it appeared before Parliament to get confidence. And it's the manifesto, so to speak, of our government, and everything we do should be in compliance with what we promised the Lebanese to do. And in that document, we speak about the firm commitment to extend the authority of the state over its territory. You may call it a euphemism. We didn't use the word disarmament, but when you extend the authority of the state by its own means to the whole territory, you're declaring arms outside the realm of the state being illegal. Then we say we want to restore the right of war and peace back to the state, and we spoke about the monopoly of arms as well in this political manifesto of our government. So things are clear and unequivocal. There is a reference, true, not to the national defense strategy, but there is a reference to the national security plan. That
what's the difference? It's a nuance.
Well, yeah, national security is much broader. It involves anything from cyber security to food security. It's not just about the use of arms against enemies. While the defense strategy is about defending the country against foreign invasion and occupation.
Right.
That's what it's. So the concept of national security strategy is more wide-embracing than the first one. In a way, things are clear as far as our political manifesto goes, but at the same time, there is an implicit agreement that all of this will have to happen without the use of force. This is where conversation, dialogue is important. Make sure, and we've heard everybody say that we don't want a confrontation between any armed group, let alone Hezbollah, with the army, nor does the army want any confrontation with anybody. They want to be able to do what they're expected to do without having to use force. So this is the second comment. My third comment is that this is a Lebanese issue. This is for us Lebanese to handle, in a way, irrespective of Israeli and American pressure. But that doesn't mean that we're not committed to a scrupulous respect of the cessation of hostilities. And we will continue to urge the international community to put pressure on Israel so that it complies with the agreement it has signed on November 27th of last year, which stipulates a full cessation of hostilities. There was a cessation of hostilities on Lebanon side, but on Israeli side, as you can see every day or every other day or every week or every other week, they continue. Airstrikes, drones are all over the place, and they occupy 5 hills in southern Lebanon. They have not released the prisoners. So Lebanon has complied with the agreement of November 27. They did not. And what we're doing by way of extending the authority of the state is not a favor we're doing to Israel, because we know that Israel is not complying to the agreement it had signed on. Now, when it comes to the Americans offered to help. I would hesitate to call them offered their role as mediators. It's technically they're not mediators. They were sponsors. They brokered the November 27th agreement, and therefore they have a moral responsibility to make sure it is respected. It's their agreement, so to speak. And therefore, whether rightly or wrongly, whether optimistically or not so optimistically, we're expecting them to put pressure on Israel so that the very agreement they had brokered is respected. Unfortunately, that did not succeed. And there were people who were telling us, look, as long as the Israelis are still there and are not willing to stop their aggression, why do you want to disarm Hezbollah? And the answer was extending the authority of the state is a Lebanese matter, irrespective of what Israel does or doesn't do. Although we are unequivocal in our condemnation of what Israel is doing, and we need to mobilize support from the world community to support in our legitimate rights, so to speak, to be a country at peace, a country that regain its territorial integrity.
So how does the government then address the perception that many people have that the decisions being made and the pushing for disarmament are as a result of Western pressure rather than the national interest of the country?
Well, I mean, there are people who are not willing to believe what the government is saying. It's their full right. And I mean, you know, the skeptics and the cynics in Lebanon are quite a few. So this is not going to change easily. And then we have free media and you know, media in the modern world, especially social media and the like, can say anything about anything, anytime.
But you stand firm that
and influence public opinion.
Yeah.
We stand firm because this is what we promised the Lebanese to do when our government was put together. We've said that clearly. It's documented. Of course, we admit that there is pressure, American pressure and Israeli pressure, but we're not doing this for the sake of the Americans or of the Israelis. We're doing it for the sake of the Lebanese.
So the question then is, why is it prioritizing disarmament of Hezbollah when there hasn't been clear compliance by Israel to Resolution 1701 and the ceasefire agreement?
It's a good question, and it's a question that I ask myself every now and then. Should we wait till Israel complies so that we get on with our plan to extend the authority of the state, or should we do both simultaneously? So while one hand is busy trying to get Israel out of Lebanon and seize its military operations against our country, our people, and on the other hand, try to restore the authority of the state. They're two objectives, they're not contradictory, and they go together. And they need not be sequential. Of course, the Israelis want those two to be sequential. They say, disarm Hezbollah, and then we'll see. Of course, we can't accept this, this insistence on this sequence.
And is there a mechanism in place? You can't talk too much about the new plan, but to ensure reciprocity in implementing this disarmament or state domination of the entire territory. Has there been further discussions with Israel? And I raise that because in an interview you had recently, you said that this US proposal that was presented by Barak, which seems to be aligned with the decision by the government, was conditional on the approval of Syria and Israel. And given that Israel has neither respected nor signalled any intention to accept the proposal, is the US agreement still valid? Is it still appropriate to be enforcing the disarmament or any other measures included in the agreement?
You know, the so-called Barak paper, which was drafted by the Americans, discussed with the Lebanese officials and amended. So some will call it an American-Lebanese paper. I still call it the American paper as amended by the Lebanese. Now, it has two parts. First part of it, interestingly, it is called a memorandum towards stabilizing and extending the cessation of hostilities. So already the title speaks about the cessation of hostilities. And this is addressed to Israel because Israel doesn't comply with the cessation of hostilities. We have complied. So this document is in two parts. The first part is a series of objectives, and the second part is a plan, is a roadmap. And then there is a conclusion, a final close. So in the government, we've approved the objectives, which are fine, as far as I can see, and the government thought that they were fine, so we approved them. We did not approve the operational part because it concludes with a clear clause that says this agreement becomes effective if approved by the Lebanese government, the Israeli government, and the Syrian government. So it's conditional. Now that it has not been approved by the Israelis, so the operative part is, whatever the word you would like to use, irrelevant, inapplicable, meaningless. I mean, there are many words that you can use to say this. But the Council of Ministers, although affirmed that is during the session on September 5th, affirmed that we agreed to the objectives, not to the full document, and we took note of the fact that Israel did not adhere to the full document, and therefore the full document is not on the table. We said that clearly. We did not close and lock the door to the possibility of the Americans, the French, or any other intermediary to try again and put pressure on Israel.
And it's very interesting because then, because again, when you listen to the gaggle from the media or from interpreters, analysts, whatever, the feeling is that the Lebanese government is not demonstrating its own will. But in fact, what you're explaining to us today is that you as a government and the Council of Ministers have actually thought very clearly about it, and you're not too far apart from Hezbollah, because Hezbollah's point of view, and this is where the concern is, that it could lead to civil war if there's a forced disarmament without cooperation and understanding, but that you're pulling back and you're seeing that there has to be a comparative play on the Israeli side. They have to show that they're serious. And so there is some conditions there that are in favour of Lebanon. But it brings us back to a question I asked of the Member of Parliament for Hezbollah. Well, if Lebanon doesn't comply with the will of Israel, really, and America, and follow through on the conditions, is Lebanon going to come under further bombardment and attacks and continued encroachment into its territory by Israel?
Well, this Israeli Damocles sword is upon us. There's no doubt. But how far they would go, it remains to be seen. What we are saying to Hezbollah, let's proceed with the army's plan and don't give additional pretexts to Israel. We have no guarantees so far that Israel is going to comply by the agreement reached last year. And we understand that there are a number of military missions that the Lebanese armed forces cannot accomplish under the present circumstances. They can't say extend the authority of the state in certain parts of Lebanon when Israeli drones are above their heads. We understand that and we know that. Yes. But we didn't go as far as Hezbollah, who says unless they stop, then nothing will happen. Yeah. We're saying we will continue to ask for an Israeli compliance with cessation of hostilities, but at the same time work on extending the authority of the state wherever this is possible.
And do you believe that a battle with Hezbollah has been averted because of this?
I would like to think so.
Because as you mentioned, they left the cabinet meeting, Council of Ministers meeting, not angry, not frustrated. There was an understanding, and that's very important for the Lebanese people to know that here and those abroad and the world, not to be manipulated by narratives that don't reflect the reality that's actually on the ground here, to create chaos between the government and Hezbollah.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there are narratives in Lebanon, unfortunately, whether willingly or unwillingly, suggest that Lebanon is in a kind of permanent civil war, and that peace is an interlude between two military confrontations. And I think our narrative is different. We want Lebanon to restore its unity and its civil peace, no going back to the civil war. And we hope, and we've been given signals from Hezbollah that they're not interested in going back to the former divisions and conflicts that have plagued our country for so many years.
And we've even heard from the leader of the Lebanese forces, Samir Jaja, just in the last 24 to 48 hours about his, it was almost like an olive branch to Hezbollah, you know, saying that the Hezbollah or Shia, Lebanon wouldn't be Lebanon without the Shia, and embracing the community. I think it's the first time I've ever heard him say something like that.
Well, it's good that stating the obvious is a good thing.
But coming from him means a lot to a lot of the Shia who right now there is significant, angst, not amongst all the Shia, but certain groups of Shia who feel polarized and feel concerned that, if the Hezbollah is disarmed, that they will have less protection. And I believe that this government is acting for all of Lebanon.
I think we need to be extremely sensitive to this. I mean, all citizens are equal, and and our future is sort of intertwined, we're bound together, and there is no Lebanese better than any other Lebanese. And there is a community that has suffered a lot throughout the succession of Israeli aggression, and we've got to embrace that community. There is no doubt about that. And the state has a duty towards the victims of Israeli aggression. We have a duty to rebuild the villages in the south. It's a duty. And we have a duty to make everything possible to allow the return of all those people that were displaced from their villages. There is no doubt about that.
I think a lot of people will be very happy to hear that coming from you, Excellency, and reassure them, because yes, they have been abandoned many times and had only one recourse, but we're in a new era for Lebanon. This president, prime minister, this new government has shifted Lebanon into a new era, and we want to see that moving forward with actions and not just talk, but real feeling and commitment to implementing those policies that you mentioned. I'm going to just veer back to the issue that really still is present, and that is Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has openly declared his vision for a greater Lebanon, as have ministers in his government, Smotrich and Ben-Gvir, and the settler leader Daniel Avis, and they are hell-bent on achieving this. It's public. It's been actually since the beginning of the Gaza conflict, there's been videos of average Israeli soldiers all saying we're coming for Lebanon. If Israel invaded Lebanon tomorrow and Hezbollah had been disarmed and its militia disbanded, how does the Lebanese army defend Lebanon? Where does Lebanon stand?
You know, when you see how the genocide in Gaza is unfolding, nothing surprises you when it comes to the Israeli design for the region. Now, we can argue endlessly about whether the Israeli design is the greater Israel. I'm inclined to think that the Israeli design is to destroy the region. And I mean, the ethnic cleansing in Gaza is not part of a design, in the sense of establishing a new political reality. It's vengeance, it's hatred, it's genocide, it's ethnic cleansing. And I see the Israelis trying to destroy the region, to fragment it further. Whenever there is a possibility of dividing Syria, creating dissensions and divisions between minorities and majorities, they would seize the opportunity. For Lebanon, I'm inclined to think that the Israelis are happy with things are now.
But for how long?
They've put Lebanon on back burner, we are told, and they can hit whenever they want. They can send drones or airplanes because of their supremacy by air. It's not a costly war for them. It doesn't involve boots on the ground. Their villages and settlements are out of reach. They feel safe and able to threaten us anytime they want at a very low cost. So this is a situation that may continue for a while. And it's our role to open the eyes of those who claim they're friends of Lebanon, and some are, to open their eyes to this and say...
But can't they see it? It's blatantly evident.
You know, in many Western countries, people, the most reasonable people, the most ethical people, get blinded when it comes to Israel. There is this Israeli exceptionalism, in many Western countries. It is changing, alhamdulillah. Thanks God, it's changing gradually in many public opinion in America, in Australia, in Europe. Of course, it is changing. But there are still, I mean, you meet respectable people who talk sense about anything. But when it comes to Israel, then...
Is this the brainwashing that the Zionists have done for the last 100 years?
It is the blackmail that you can...
Yes,
they fear to be accused of being anti-Semitic. It's the historical guilt of Europe. I mean, there are many factors that explain this. But, so that's our problem with the international community, is that while they can be understanding, when it comes to Israel, they are less so.
And it's still now, even 2 years after Gaza?
Even now, well, look at the US policy in the region. But I'm confident that this is going to change. The coast is heavy, you know, children are killed, cities are destroyed like Gaza. We're paying a very, very heavy cost. But the heavier is the cost, the more transformation there is in the public opinion. It's sad, but this is how it goes.
Did you have more hope that Donald Trump coming into the presidency would cease the military actions?
He repeatedly said that his anti-war is in favor of a peace deal. Well, he loves this word deal. Well, to be frank, we've not seen the fruits of this.
No.
I mean, again, Gaza is being massacred before our eyes, and not even a ceasefire has been imposed on the Israelis in Gaza. So.
And with respect to America and its desire, with all of its agreements and its desire to stabilize Lebanon or claim to stabilize Lebanon, for decades it has prevented the Lebanese army from being properly enforced and reinforced and equipped. Why is that?
Yeah, I mean, traditionally, I'm no military expert, but I'm told that the $100 or so million that the Americans give in kind to the Lebanese army is much below what the Lebanese armed forces request and need.
But it's not including heavy weaponry, even defense weaponry.
It's not providing the army with what it needs to defend Lebanon, of course. Again, it has to do with being blind when it comes to anything related to Israel.
It can't weaponize an army on the border with Israel.
Yeah, I mean, I think America has been consistent in favoring a total Israeli military supremacy over the whole region. How could then Israel be able to defeat or destroy, or do both, the whole region, had it not been the means that they are given? They're not...
they can't do it alone.
Israeli soldiers are not more courageous than Egyptian or Iraqi or Yemeni soldiers, probably the contrary. But with what they have, you know,
and it's not just
and
the
this
Americans.
is mostly it comes from the U.S.
Yeah. But they have absolutely. We've seen them fight against Iran, and if it wasn't for the support of neighbouring countries and the U.S. and UK, the Iranians could have done much more damage to Israel. And with all of this investment in its equipment and technology and development, and it still is weak because it can't stand on its own, and it needs that support. So why haven't any other countries, any other nations been able to support the Lebanese army? Again, for the same reasons, is it all politically tied? Is there a sanction on Lebanon, the Lebanese army receiving proper weapons?
Well, I'm not well informed, to be frank with you, to answer this question. But we've often been told that from day one, the army has been dependent on American weapons, and there was a time where the Russians volunteered or offered to give military support, and the argument used against accepting the Russian offer was that
America would.
No, that the Lebanese army is trained to use American weapons, that officers go and have their military training in West Point Academy and I don't know what. So it's a long tradition that you cannot disrupt easily by just accepting Russian or Polish or whatever arms.
I don't buy that argument. I think a soldier is a soldier, and a weapon is.
That's the argument I've always heard.
I would say a true military person has capability of using weapons with minimal training, but we'll leave that question there. On the point of, I'm nearly finished. I know that we're running over, but just a few questions to finish. Is there a vision for integrating the existing armed capabilities of, say, Hezbollah or others into the Lebanese army?
It should be a matter up for discussion. I'm not aware of any serious conversation on this, but down the line, it's likely to happen.
Going to when Lindsey Graham, the US Senator, when he visited a couple of weeks ago, he mentioned an agreement, a defence agreement with Lebanon, and the setting up of an economic zone in the south of Lebanon. This carrot, almost as if it was, offering Lebanon a carrot, but it feels more like a mask for an intention to annex the south, rather than setting up a free economic zone, which obviously would include Israel being allowed to stay in those areas in the south. But what was your interpretation of the Lindsey Graham suggestion of the defence agreement and an economic zone?
Well, frankly, I don't think it's a carrot, and I'm not sure he means business, but I stand to be corrected.
I didn't give it much weight, but on the issue of the objective of this government, I want to understand what its real objective is. Is it to forge a strong alliance with the US and allow America to build another military base in the Middle East, in this country, as it's done in many other Arab countries? Or what is the objective of this government?
I don't think this is this is an objective of the Lebanese government. The objective of the Lebanese government is to restore civil peace, to rebuild a state that is fragmented, disintegrated, to reform so that Lebanon becomes eligible to international support. The role of the government, as I said, is to liberate the occupied part of Lebanon from Israeli occupation and to extend the authority of the state to its territory. These are our stated objectives. We're not interested in being a military base for the Americans or anyone else for that purpose.
The question arises from the fact that America has built its second biggest embassy in Lebanon, a tiny country with a massive, spent billions of dollars, as well as last week or more recently a US military plane landing in Riyadh. We're not sure what was on it, but you obviously have much more information. But there are concerns about these factors.
There are legitimate concerns. I myself, some time ago, many years ago, I asked the question to a US ambassador who was visiting me in my office, as I was a private citizen. And then I was given a series of answers why the embassy is what it is. So it kind of watered down that it has no particular strategic or military importance for the US.
Do you believe them?
I listened to what they had to say. I mean, the involvement of the Americans in Lebanon is not as massive as, of course, there are now with the mechanism and so on, there is military presence, but it's not that significant. I think the stakes are not high for the Americans in military terms when it comes to Lebanon. Syria, Jordan, Iraq, Egypt are far more important to them in terms of their overall strategy, including military strategy, than the little Lebanon. We're a footnote. You know, I have read many books of American decision makers, diplomats, political scientists, and I've seen how American foreign policy unfolds in Lebanon. And I tend to conclude that Lebanon has never been crucial for American interests. There has never been a Lebanon policy in Washington. Lebanon policy has always been a footnote of regional American strategy. Lebanon was never important in and of itself for the Americans. That's what I think.
Interesting. I mean, considering the influence of Lebanon for such a small country, its population and its people have had a tremendous impact globally for many decades on the international scene. With respect to the region, one could say previously maybe it wasn't because it didn't have the oil reserves of the other countries. Now we have gas reserves. It's a bit more interesting.
You mentioned Lindsey Graham, didn't you? When he spoke about this treaty between praised Lebanon. You know what? You remember what he said? He said, "When you're in America, wherever you go, there is a Lebanese restaurant."
Yes, he did. That's right. Yeah, we're not far from people's mind and stomachs, but
good food, nice people.
That's how they think of us, rather than, on a powerful level. I'm going to finish off with a practical question on a parochial note, more local. Many Lebanese citizens, both in Lebanon and the diaspora, have great hopes for this president and prime minister and cabinet, and yet they feel as though not enough, or they haven't seen enough from the government on the ground in implementation of policies. And the most important thing is improving the plight of the Lebanese people economically. The health sector remains still out of reach for most of the population. Salaries continue to be low, and there are limited jobs. Does the government have any proposed plans to shift this, to help its citizens and show, before the next elections, which are in May next year, real tangible results that the people can refer to?
Yes. You know, our government has raised expectations of majority of the Lebanese population. And when expectations are high, disappointment is high too. And we see that, we hear that. But to the plans, the hopes, the determination of our government to improve the lives of the Lebanese is strong and continues to be. And we're putting things on track towards that objective. We're not achieving much on various fronts, so to speak, that you mentioned. True. We're not, for two reasons. State institutions, we inherited state institutions that have fallen apart, and we're trying to rebuild them with very, very little means in view of the economic financial crash we had in 2019. And the obstacles towards recovery are unsurmountable. There are two conditions for us to be able to meet some of those expectations: healthcare, electricity, water, salaries. One is to redynamize our economy, and this is happening, not as much as we had hoped, but it is happening. There's an estimated economic growth this year of more than 5%, after years where it was -10, -12, -13. And the other is international support. And so far, we've had zero international support. We're hopeful once we sign an agreement with IMF, there will be a conference in Paris for donors and investors. Let's see. But we have not given up on this, and we continue to work. But our ability to deliver is limited. And I think we speak the truth to the people whose expectations, as I said, are very high.
And to those who say that this government is just like the other governments before it.
This is unfair, but everybody has the right to say anything they want to say. You know, I told you the Lebanese, and they have every good reasons after what all they have endured, to be skeptics and cynics.
Yeah, but the Manzoumi, is it still as strong as it was, or has this new area?
You know, it is stronger than all of us had thought and hoped. It is strong, but I mean, if there is a government that tried to widen a margin of independence vis-a-vis the old political system, it's this government. I mean, compare it to the previous one. But what can you do? How can you reform a country where you're not sure you have a reform-minded parliament? You know, the government is the executive power. It doesn't have
the real power
in its hands to change the system.
So next year, the elections are very critical for the country to move forward.
Let's see.
What would be your hope for the elections next year? Looking at the political makeup at the moment,
to have a more reform-minded parliament, it's my hope. Whether this will happen or not, I have no idea. Less divided and more reform-minded.
Can it be achieved with the political parties in play today? Or do we need new political parties? Do we need more independence? What is it?
Certainly we need new political forces, but that takes time. The system, what these young people call the Manzoumi, the political system is strong. It's resistant to change. It is resistance to change. And because of the communal system, you know, all you need is to instill fear in one community from the other, and then you block the road towards change.
This is political.
You remember that happened in 2019.
Yeah.
You know, it started as a protest that crossed every communal line, it united people, and it was enough for one communal group to feel threatened by it, to put a halt on that genuine popular movement.
Yes, it was genuine. It was a reaction, a genuine reaction. So I go back to the 2026 election, just finally. What would you call on the Lebanese diaspora to do? What would you...
No, I hope the new electoral law will allow them to vote properly.
Yeah.
And especially the younger people who left Lebanon the last 10 years, who are politically aware and who have their eyes very open. They're not just nostalgic of the good old Lebanon of their grandparents and of the Kibbe and Tabouli and what have you. Younger people are more politically aware, and I hope they will be given a chance to vote.
Thank you very much, Excellency. Wonderful interview.
Pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Real Talk and experiencing firsthand the real stories told by real people. I hope you found value and meaning and encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts. Your ongoing financial support is vital to our ability to continue delivering these stories, so please remember to click on the donate button in the description, giving only what you can afford. I spent my whole life giving my time, money and skill to serve human rights and social justice causes, and I know it's not easy to keep giving selflessly. But this work is important because the mainstream media has failed to live up to their obligations. So we need to step up, speak up, or we're no better than them. I believe by tuning in to this podcast, you are someone who wants to know the facts and the truth, so you can independently decide what to believe and what not to. My job is to deliver that information. Yours is to place a value on it. Whatever you decide is humbly welcome. Thanks again, and see you on the next episode of Real Talk.